You thought it was almost over, but the worst has yet to come. There will be no reversal of bad policies. There will be no restoration of the economy. There will be no jobs that are brought back. The process is set in stone. The sorcerers and magicians who created this financial system and various economic aspects have designed it this way. It's a one-way street, and there's no chance that will change. So what does that mean for you? Well, you came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Today we're going to discuss what's going on in the economy. I'm going to show you all of this from every angle. It's not very good because this is now the second round. We are facing what's been happening all the way for the last few months essentially, and we have watched store closure after store closure and job losses mounting up, the unemployment situation getting worse, and meanwhile stocks have risen higher and higher. Of course, if you devalue the currency, if you suggest that more inflation is coming, this is going to have an impact in a positive sense to certain assets and to, in this case, food. We've seen food inflation rising. It could come anywhere at all. All we do here is look at the data and we simply talk about it. We discuss it. We look at it. We are not able to determine things based on our crystal ball, but we can certainly start to triangulate the positions. We can look at the data points, connect the dots, and start to make sense of things. Now, you as an individual, what can you do? Well, I've talked about this in my books. I've talked about this in my free e-courses and the playlist also that I have there called How To and Solutions. But you need to prepare as an individual. If you're trying to change the entire system by putting somebody in charge, by getting rid of this person or that person, the corruption is there at its absolute root, and you will not be able to make a difference in that aspect. But what you can do is vote with your dollars. You can vote with your feet. You can do things that are so important to you and your family. And by doing so, you make a change to your community and to those around you and to those who are connected to you in one way, shape, or form. This is a very lengthy topic on its own. Perhaps I should do a rant GPS about that. But for today, I'm going to get into this information here. I'll probably have to split it up into two videos. There's so much, I don't even know how I'm going to get to it. Enough talking, let's get it on. I wanted to start the video by talking about this. Small businesses doubt that they can survive lockdown 2.0. That's what we're facing when I talk about it being the second round. I didn't say that, even though I do agree with it. This is coming from various articles that I have seen, various pieces of data. I'll even show you a study in the next one that is documenting exactly what's been happening. And unfortunately, it has really impacted negatively so many people because jobs, because businesses are going down the drain. This is talking specifically about what's going on in Australia, but you look at the situation anywhere. This is a big problem for a lot of people, and yet we are still trying to deny it in the media. We're still trying to deny it everywhere else I've seen. Come on, grow up. New survey shows a second wave of US layoffs and furloughs is well underway. So this here is approximately 6,000 people. So we know that it is only going to be a sample set of data. But as I've talked about numerous times, when we look at this information, we look at it from another source, we look at it from another source. You take 6,000 here, you take 1,000 here, you take 500 here, and suddenly that picture starts to become more clear. Take a look at this. 57% of those initially laid off or furloughed reported being put back onto the payroll sometime after their initial dismissal. Wow, fantastic, right? But 39% of such respondents say that they were put back on the payroll yet were not asked to return to actual work. There's a big issue going on here, and this to me is very interesting. Last point I want to highlight from here comes down at the bottom of workers who were placed back on the payrolls after being initially laid off or furloughed. 31% report that they have been laid off a second time, and another 26% of those placed back on the payrolls report being told by their employer that they might be laid off again. Now that right there is big. Okay? You don't hear about that in most mainstream. You're certainly not going to hear about that when you got all these people saying, oh, the economy's fine, the economy's fine. And meanwhile, they're talking about their Amazon stock. Two completely different things, okay? I see the nonsense all the time. You're bearish, you're negative, you're shorting stocks. I'm not even talking about stock market. I'm talking about the jobs. I'm talking about the economy. It's ridiculous. Look at this. 37% of respondents employed by third-party employers have been laid off or furloughed at least once since March 1st, 2020. The numbers continue to pile up, and now we're in the second round. The first round hit hard enough because that pushed people down, and now to get back, just like the GDP, it's going to take a while. A lot of individuals are going paycheck to paycheck, and now suddenly this comes around. If there's a second round, that might put them out of business entirely. Like I said, we take information from different sources and it starts to match up. In California, 57% seeking unemployment benefits lost their jobs for a second time. About 57% of workers, or 140,000 people who filed for unemployment benefits in California, recently had their jobs, or, I wanted to make that clear, or their hours cut for a second time. Because a lot of people, they were working an appropriate amount of hours based on what they need to live, to pay their bills, and now suddenly that's been cut. Also, the situation, of course, people do have a job now, but it's not the one that was paying them what they were before. They just took whatever they can get. This is a situation that they are not able to show in the statistics, but this is what's been happening. More and more farms are going bankrupt today, and that is despite all of the money that's being sent their way. Take a look at this. Apparently in 2020, the expectation is that the government will provide $33 billion in payments to farmers. You can see over the past few years how this has really escalated. This information comes out of the Wall Street Journal. There's more detail in here, but we've seen how many bailouts there have been, how much money has gone there. I have done videos about this, breaking it all down, showing you that if you are at the top of the food chain right here, you're one of the big agribusinesses, not the small farms, well then you get most of the money. But if you are at the bottom right here, you get nothing essentially. That's just the way it is. Bigger businesses, more money. Smaller businesses, go screw yourself. This article here is just talking about what's going on with the airlines. I have been discussing this all throughout this entire period. We know that they're going to have to get more money. Initially, they said we were going to lay a bunch of people off. They came out with a bailout and said, don't lay anybody off, take this money instead. Then a month or two passes and they say, well, you know what? I know we took the money. I know we agreed to the terms, but we're going to have to lay people off anyway. Too bad. And then the government came out and then they said, well, don't lay them off. We're going to give you some money. And that's basically what they're arguing about right now. How much money should be going to them? It doesn't matter. It's a black hole. The more money you give them, the more money they'll spend on something, and ultimately they get the benefit from it. Oh, but they're gonna have to pay it back. GM had to pay it back, and whatever other company had to pay it back. Oh no, not this time around, because a lot of them are forgivable. Don't forget about that word, forgivable. What does that mean? It's not a loan, it's a gift. This was sent to me by a subscriber, and you could see that Lufthansa, yet another airline that is unfortunately taking a heavy hit at this moment. It aims to reduce 22,000 full-time jobs and said that it had 8,300 fewer employees by the end of June. That's 22,000 people for this one company. And you look around, it's company after company after company, and it's all different industries. You know, if you saw what happened during the financial crisis, you could say, all right, anything connected to the housing market, it's going to be destroyed. And you look at the financial crisis as that was unfolding, you could depict exactly which ones were hit and why. But this time around, it's basically everybody minus a few. Virgin Atlantic Airways seeks bankruptcy protection under Chapter 15. Here's another one that unfortunately has gone bankrupt. And you could say, well, that company's bad, or this company's good, or this company's bad, or not so good. And it doesn't matter. We are seeing company after company, and as a result, jobs are lost. That's the big deal. Canadian retailer David's Tea, no affiliation with me, is closing the vast majority of its stores in Canada and all of its US locations following months of financial troubles and a renewed focus on online shopping. They're closing 166 stores. 42 of the locations are in the US. Again, just another company. They mentioned in the bottom left corner there, I noticed that they haven't paid their rent in 3 months. We're talking about a big company here. And as you can see, it's affecting all different types of industries far and wide. I promise you, I'm going to get you some new numbers on what they say food inflation is at, and I want to get multiple sources if possible. But this is a big deal because when you look at all of the breakdown here of the average individual and what they spend, you see that they have to buy groceries and they have to pay their rent and they have their utility bills, and then they have their discretionary spending. Maybe they want to buy a new iPhone, maybe they want to buy a ticket to the movie theater or whatever it is. But if you look at, let's say, the bottom 50% of people, they spend a relatively large portion of their earnings on food, or at least a much bigger portion than those in the top 10% if you want to compare that. When food moves up in price, if it escalates, let's say by 5% or 10% in a matter of a year or two, this has a dramatic impact on a lot of people. For the unemployed, rising grocery prices stretch budgets even more. The cost of groceries has been rising at the fastest pace in decades. This has led to sticker shock for basic staples such as beef and eggs and forcing struggling households to rethink how to put enough food on the table. You know you got a serious problem when food is rising and you look at the official numbers and they are far, far too low. I have seen in certain cases where they have actually allowed it to rise on the charts, but the truth is that they're still not depicting reality. This article here connects in with what I was talking about a moment ago with the farm bankruptcies, and it really highlights something very important because you look at these different farms and you can see that food inflation rising has not been able to benefit a lot of them because they're still going bankrupt. The prices that the consumer has to pay goes up as the expenses of these different farms are increasing. They pass it on to the consumer. If anything happens along a supply chain where there's an increase in price, you will see it. You will see it. It's not as if they simply take a bigger hit. No company does that. Maybe for a short period of time, but in these cases here, they increase the price. And this time around, unfortunately, price is up, but so are the bankruptcies. This is just showing you that farm bankruptcies have increased 8% over a 12-month period. That's all for this video. If you found it informative, hit that thumbs up button. When you do, you're supporting me. I want to thank you for that. If you want to check me out on Instagram and Twitter, you can do so at The Money GPS. If you want to learn how to sell stuff online, you can do so for free in my e-course, theamazongps.com. If you want to learn about the financial system from A to Z, top to bottom, everything is in here. These two books have what you need. Check them out at the link in the description. If you want the audiobook, themoneygps.com. Hang on a second, don't go anywhere. You've got to watch this video. It breaks down so much information. Definitely check it out. Click it. I'll see you there.